So this is basically what a ham looks like. I've had this ham more years than I can count, and I think they still look like this. That, I mean, if it doesn't need to be changed, then why change it? I don't know. I don't know if there are other iterations of this design. Maybe they use different colors. Pretty much everybody that I knew growing up had this gray, red, black version, but for all I know, there are now different color combinations on both sides. Mine has obviously experienced some water damage, but that was, let's see, when that was about 30 years ago. It dried and nothing inside has been, to my knowledge, has been damaged. I caught it when just this outside section was wet and it dried out under strict supervision, and I did not see any reason to get rid of it and replace it. It's just fine. Like I said, it's actually over 30 years old now, and they are almost always, to my knowledge, made with this wool and canvas. When I have to use this side of my ham to press, I use a pressing cloth, or in my case it would be a flour sack towel, and I just, not this one, the one that I use for that is over by my ironing board, and it's smooth, and I just kind of wrap up my ham like this and use that side. And then if I need to use the wool side, I don't feel like I need to cover it up. So since this does have some discoloration, I wouldn't want that color to transfer to whatever I happen to be working on, and that is why I use a pressing cloth, or in my case, flour sack. And you can just wrap it up and then put that item of clothing right there. So what I'm using my ham for is like sort of an extra set of hands. It's raising it up off of my needlework, up off of the work surface. I don't have to hold it in my hand, and often if you turn your work this way, depending on which hand you prefer to sew with, you can kind of keep your thread in the area where it needs to be, behind the needle, not in front of the needle. Okay. Oh, I missed a stitch right there. I got all ahead of myself. Well, what I'm going to have to do is just go back. That's kind of the great thing about hiding the stitches. But because I was on the phone, I got turned around. There we go. Okay. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. So I'm picking up just a little bit of the ticking and then coming through the front of my red work panel. I'm going to see if I can't figure out a way to have this film where it will show up good. So the thread is behind my needle. I'm just going to come up, and that's about as big as I want my stitches to be, right there. And I will then pull up another stitch. And that's pretty much how I am proceeding with my project. I'm using the ham to hold the stitching up where I can comfortably get to it. I cannot put this in a hoop. I wouldn't want to anyway, under the circumstances of the way that it is being created. I feel like it would put a lot of stress on the fabric. So I'm just kind of booking along. I started really working on it this morning before daylight. Okay, so I'm going to untangle. The knot's gone, but I have a twist. Okay, there we go. What I'm going to show you is I have done all the way across the top and all the way across this side right here, and I am getting that awesome sort of vintage rustic look that I've just crave. I love it, love it, love it. Alright, so now let's put the ham over here. Like so. I'm storing the needle that I'm sewing with in the ticking, not in this muslin. And seeing that unless I find more, the silk thread is the only spool of that color silk thread. I'm really trying hard to keep these guys together. So I need to find a bag to put this in. And then I am going to clean off my cutting table and get the pajama pants cut out. I think that's probably where I am at this moment. Okay, and then again, I don't know if you were watching, this is October the 26th of 2020, and I think 2 days ago I got new rotary cutter blades. The ones I had were, I am ashamed to admit, but they were way over a year old. This has just been a joy. Well, that was close. I just remembered that I had promised someone else that I would make the next pair of pants from a Simplicity pattern. So this one is the pattern that I purchased to use to make my jacket from, the jacket that I'm still working on. And it just happened, of course, to have a pair of pajama pants. So I had decided that that's what I was going to do with this fabric, and I almost forgot. So I have packed up the McCall's Easy Options 2476, and I have removed the pattern pieces for the long pants in the Simplicity Easy to Sew 3971. Whew, close call there. Alright, so using my paper scissors, I'm going to cut out. A lot of these pieces I've not cut out, and I'll indicate that so I'll know if I don't see a piece 3, it may be folded up in piece 2. And then there's piece 10. There's 2 piece 10 pattern pieces. And then for the pants or pajama bottoms, we have piece number 12, piece number 11. So I'm going to go ahead and I feel like there's, yeah, there's another piece attached to this, so I'll deal with that one in a minute. And I'm just going to go ahead, oh, there's a piece for the pocket. I'll put that back in the envelope. All right. Almost done. Now can you imagine how fun this would be if you decided to make PJs, you know, for the holidays. Even if you couldn't be with your family, it would be kind of fun to all have matching PJs. I think it's a great idea. Alright, so this is the back, and I'm just going to go ahead and give both the front and the back a quick press with a dry iron and get all the rest of this I haven't looked at the instructions. I went ahead and pinned pants back piece number 12, size extra large, onto my folded over fabric. But I can guarantee you that for extra large, they're going to tell me that I have to open my fabric out and cut 2 separate pieces. So I would cut one with the fabric pattern piece face up, and then one with the pattern piece face down in a different location. But I am going to cut this pattern just on the inside of this XL line. Okay, with nap, size XL, triple X, and yes, so what they're doing is they've got, yeah, the selvages, they've got it opened out and then put 2 pieces of fabric together. So you would have your selvages here and over here. But I don't need to do that because I'm using a smaller guide. In other words, my pattern piece is still on the fold of the fabric and it's still on over here. Now granted, I'm on the selvage, but that selvage is going to be within the seam allowance. So if I use it at all, I may miss it. I mean, I'm going to be cutting here, and the selvage, if I use any, it's going to just be a skinny little amount from about here to here. And that's not going to be a big issue in a pair of pajamas. Now, I would never do that on a pair of pants that I was making out of, say, a wool tweed or an expensive day wear type of pants for anybody, I wouldn't cut it this way. I would do it the way that the pattern suggested, which is basically to cut your fabric, open it out, lay another piece exactly the same right on top, and then cut out your pattern piece. But I'm not doing that for a couple of reasons. One, I don't want to, and two, it's not necessary in the grand scheme of things. And I can add a third reason. I don't have that kind of room in my cutting area. So I'm going to do what I've always done, which is make it work. And I realize this is the first time I can remember that I have not gone over the pattern first. So after I get the pieces cut out, we'll do a quick run through of the pattern, and then we'll start sewing, because the pajama pants are really a quick and easy fun project. They don't take much time and you get a lot of bang for your buck. Okay, so I need to move my pin out of the way. I'll pin it down here. And as I said, I'm going to cut my fabric, my pattern and everything will be just on the inside of this line. Okay, so first I'm going to cut a little divot here. And because I've cut it off, on the pattern piece itself, I'm going to draw an arrow and the word notch. This envelope, and if I need it again, it'll be easy enough to find. I don't have to unfold a bunch of pattern paper to get to it. Alright, so here is this. And get the second. You will see that they've got this wide fabric, 58 to 60 inches wide, and both pattern pieces for the pants, piece number 12, piece number 11, are printed side up according to the key right over here, and they are set in such a way that the crotch area is facing the selvage and on piece 12, and the crotch area is facing the fold on piece number 11. But this one, no, not that one. This one right here, the fabric is 45 inches wide, and this is where they have cut the fabric so that they've got two pieces of fabric on top of each other that have been cut out. So it's double thickness fabric with the selvages opened out. Piece number 11 is printed side down. Piece number 12 is printed side up. And as you can see, the crotch is pointing in the same direction. So printed side up, together, opposite direction. One up, one down, same direction. So when I cut out piece number 12, the crotch was on the fold and the straight outside seam was on the selvage side. So now I have piece number 11 with that long outside is on the folded side and the crotch is on the opposite side over here where the selvages are. So this is also going to be printed side up. My friction ink pen and mark the notches. Seems redundant, I know, but I'm going to put an F on the inside of each of the back, or excuse me, the front waistband. So that's marked. And again, the same reason, if this gets around, you know, some heat, if you're not familiar, there you go. And if that ink gets warm or hot, it's gone. And it's especially true if it's on a fabric that's like cotton, you know, an eco-friendly fabric. And right into this envelope. Now often if I'm going to be sewing something with more than 2 pieces, I will separate my unused or not in use pattern pieces and the pattern pieces that I am using, and I'll use a clear Ziploc bag or something to put all of that in. And then if I know I need to get to these pattern pieces again, I can just reach into the Ziploc bag and grab them. But I don't think I'm going to need the pattern pieces again, and it is only 2. So I'm not like, oh, I'm going to have to dig through there and find 5 or 6 pattern pieces. I don't know. That's when I would be using a Ziploc bag. Alright, I find that it is easier to use this removable table when I'm sewing with larger pieces. So I put it back on. Yeah. Alright, so we have the 2 pieces that we need for each the front and the back cut out. According to the instructions, we will not need interfacing or any other types of materials with the exception of an appropriately long piece of elastic for the waistband, and that will be easy to deal with. Okay, actually we are on page 4. And the instructions for the pants are a half of a page, and that's basically it. So the first thing that we need to do is stitch the front to the back at the inner leg seams. So that's this right here. Then we're going to stitch the crotch. So inner leg seam and then the crotch area. Back piece crotch is up here. I will take the matching front leg, right sides together, and match up that crotch, just like so. So I'm going to go ahead and do both of these inner leg seams. And I'm using 5/8 of an inch. All right, here we go. Alrighty. So the next step is to open this out, just like so. And you're going to have a back. Here's the back. And you're going to have a front. That's an F that's upside down right there. Okay, so we got the front, we got the back. And then we're going to take the other piece and we're going to put it right sides together on top. And what should happen is we should have the two back pieces meeting up and the two front pieces meeting up. If we put it together and this is a front with a back and a front with a back, we got a problem. But we don't. We're good. So I'm going to just finger press this seam open a little bit. I don't need to take it over to the ironing board just yet, but I want to, this has to be matched up. So I am matching up with my seams open like this, and I'll pin right there on both sides of that seam. Okay, I'm going to make my way around to the top and kind of check to make sure that everything is lining up like it should. Okay, so far so good. And when I get up here, I'm looking for my notches. Okay, so here are these notches and here are these notches, and they're not quite lining up, but I want the waistband to be the same. So I'm going to put those notches together and then I'm going to see what is going on. I mean, it's a minuscule amount, but I want to make sure that this is correct here. And there's a little bit extra fabric on this side, but that's a back and this is a back. Okay, well, I'm going to have to let this, the top waistband on this side, be slightly higher. It can be adjusted, you know, after I get this part done. And it may have something to do with the fact that one of the legs is longer than the other. I don't know. Okay, and I'm going to turn this around so that I can check this one. Okay, here's that crotch area, and remember we're going to be stitching this area twice for stability. Okay. And there's the notches. How do they look? They've lined up nicely. So it's just the back notches that are off a little bit, all right? And it was that back leg that was cut a little bit shorter. Interesting. Now I'm just going to start about here. It's about halfway down on the inside, and I'm just going to stitch it again and end about halfway up on the other side. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is I'm going to go to the ironing board and I'm going to first just iron flat. Just let my seams be flat like this. I'm going to iron all of this and the inside leg seam. And then I'm going to press all of that open. And then I'm going to trim the crotch seam down a little bit, about 1/4 of an inch. Basically, you just take the back and the back right here, and you put them right sides together with the front and the front, and you end up with an outside leg seam here and another one on the other side that I haven't stitched yet. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of that as well. Alrighty, so the leg seams have been stitched and pressed, and now I wanted to show you a tip, several of them in fact, for doing a less globby waistband. Additionally, if you choose to do, say, a folded over casing, one of the ways that you can handle the issue of this getting in the way when you're trying to put the elastic in, because oftentimes, you know, the safety pin will get caught right here and then you can't push through to get the elastic in. You can trim those down, actually. You can trim this to be very small and easily negotiable while you're inside of that seam trying to find your way with that safety pin. So you can do that to all four. The other thing I wanted to mention is that when I make a pair of pants like this with a waistband, I go ahead, I do need to level up, kind of square up the waistband on this side, but I do make a little tag to put in the back. Super soft fabric. If you have a label that you can write on, or even just a made with love by, but make sure they're not itchy and scratchy. That's an issue that none of us wants to deal with. So I'm going to trim this waistband a little bit, and the reason I can do that is because my elastic waistband will be different than the waistband that is described in the instructions. So, beautiful. So the next step is to take a little piece of fabric and create a little loopy tab. And I'm not going to stitch it because I just want it to be a soft little tab. Eventually it will just kind of wash and wash and get softer and softer and softer, but it will still be there. It will still be obvious that that's what it is. So right now I'm just going to kind of pin it to the back on the seam like that. This isn't permanent, this is just there so that I don't lose it, and I know that this is the back currently until this is ironed off, and then I won't know that. Okay, so my next step is to get the elastic that I'm going to use to create the waistband for the pants, minus 1.5 inches. Generally speaking, you need to subtract 1.5 inches to 2 inches of most elastic. Pajama elastic, on the other hand, is super, super stretchy. So use caution, because you could end up with a piece of elastic that is just way too big. Alright, so I have cut my elastic a 1/2 inch longer than it needed to be cut for comfort on going over hips and to the waist. I'm going to zigzag where the two pieces are apart. I'm going to zigzag so that they overlap and a 1/2 inch is taken up. So that's the next thing I'm going to do. I'm going to have a completely round piece of elastic when I'm done. Okay. So there's that. It's very secure, and it's just a big loop of elastic. Alright, so next I'm going to fold my piece of elastic in half. I'm going to take, you can mark it with really anything. You can use a heat erase pen. You can use a regular ink pen, because nobody will see the ink and it shouldn't be an issue. However, if you're more comfortable using heat erase, just or even chalk or something, mark the part where it's folded, and then go across and mark the other part where it is folded, and then match up those two marks that you just made. So my one heat erase mark to my other heat erase mark. To keep that straight and on, I'm going to pin it. Just going to run a pin straight through the elastic so that those two black marks stay together. And I'm going to do the exact same thing again. On this side, I'm going to mark my elastic. Like that. And I'm going to come over here and do the exact same thing. Again. Okay. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 quadrants. Well, quadrants would be 4, but I have 4 areas of my elastic marked off with these little black lines. Okay? Next, I'm going to remove that pin that was holding the little loop of fabric. I need to fold down about 1/4 inch. But you'll notice that when I do that, I'm going to cover up the B that I wrote on here to denote that this is the back. So I'm just going to right over here next to this back seam, because this is also the back piece. There it is right there. And that is, I will take a safety pin right here, and I'll put it right there. Now if I lose the letter B, then I know that the safety pin is in the back. Okay? So I can press down my 1/4 inch, and then I'm going to stitch it. I don't need to fold down and make a pretty hem, because when this is done, this will be what I get at the very end. So that is the beginning, and I do need to stitch it down, because when I'm putting the elastic in, I'm not going to have all these pins to hold this down. So I'm going to go press it, stitch it, and I'll be right back. Alright, so the top 1/4 inch has been pressed and stitched down. And next, I'm going to set up my pant waistband so that the back, which I have 2 B's right here, back, I also have a safety pin that reminds me this is the back. I'm going to take my piece of elastic right here, and I'm going to find one of those black marks, and I'm going to pin that black mark right below where I just stitched on the back seam. Now what I want to be able to do is tuck the elastic in when I'm done. So I need to make sure that I'm coming down far enough that I will miss the elastic. So if I have to push the elastic up a little bit to get my fabric to come down over the top of it, then that's what I'm going to have to do. Push it up or pull it down, however that's going to work, and then pin it into place with your pin. And when I'm doing this type of elastic, I will put a pin on either side of that seam, like that. And I'll show you the other one. Now, instead of going side to side, first of all, I need to make sure my elastic is not twisted. It isn't. Okay. Now, I'm going to bring the front, the very front of the pants, right here is the front seam, and I'm going to take this dot right here, and I'm going to put it in the same place that I put the back piece of elastic. I'm going to make sure that my elastic is not twisted, and I'm going to lay this seam down, check to make sure I'm not twisted. I'm not. Okay, and then I'm going to come down, check to see how far down my elastic needs to be covered up by this piece of fabric. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to pin it on either side. I'll show you again in just a minute. Like that. There's the seam. Okay. And then I'm going to hold the two that I just did and turn it to the side so that I have a piece of elastic with a black mark on it ready to get pinned down on this seam right here. Okay, so I have this front, I have this back. Now I'm going to do this side. So here's my little black mark right there. That black mark is going to go right on the seam where the stitching is. Okay, I'm going to fold this over. Push it up just a little bit. Okay, and then pin on either side of the seam. And then I have one more side seam to do. And while I'm thinking about it, before I forget, I'm going to put my sewing machine in a zigzag stitch because it has to be in a zigzag stitch for this method, we'll call it, for this method to work. Okay, and now the final side, I've got my black mark right here. My seam is right here. I'm going to take this little black mark and put it right on top of that seam, right in the ditch. And then fold this over until I have, basically what I'm doing is I'm getting the stitching line just on the other side of the elastic. That's all I'm looking for. Just on the other side of the stitching line, or the elastic. Okay, perfect. And then I'm just going to put in a pin and a pin, one on each side of the seam. I don't want this to come unpinned while I'm trying to do what I'm doing. Now you're going to notice, let me back you up a little bit. if you've never done this before, you're going to notice that the elastic is way smaller than the waistband, and it should be. It should definitely have a whole lot of fabric like this. Lots and lots of fabric. Not so much with the elastic. Okay? I'm going to start on the back. So I'm going to turn this around like so. I'm going to put my sewing machine foot on the, just so it's going to catch the top edge of this elastic. I'm going to put my needle down manually because I have two pins and they've managed to kind of go sideways. So it would be a catastrophe if I hit that with my sewing machine foot or my needle. So I'm going, now that the needle is in the elastic, I'm going to remove this pin and I'm going to move up by one stitch manually, like so, and then I'm going to remove the other pin. Now I need to get a hold of my elastic and take a few stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm going to pull my elastic. It's going to pull just till I have some resistance. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing. And you will notice that it's gathering up as we go. Now the goal is you want to get all of the fabric between these pins and the pins I just left. This all has to be gathered up onto this fabric. So if you don't pull it enough, then you're going to have kind of a mess on your hands. I always kind of double check it after I get going good. It looks like I've got it pretty much set up here. And I want to stop before I get to the pins. I need to locate my little tabby thing. I'm going to take the safety pin out because I won't need it. And I'm going to put this little tabby thing underneath the elastic. I can get up here, take this first pin out, pop this underneath the elastic before I take the other pin out. Now you want to make sure that you're going to catch it with your stitching. Like I've got it all the way up here at the very tippy top, so I'm going to catch it and it's just kind of hanging down here down below. Alright, here we go. Time to sew. So we're going to take this top edge right here and fold it over like so. And that needs to stay nice and tight. And we're going to do exactly the same thing that we just did. We need to pull it tight and let it go. Pull it tight and let it go, and just make sure that we're, stitching it where we want to be stitching it. All the way around, we've encased our elastic and we have the back marked. so that the person who wears these will know that this is the back of the pants with this little tag. All right. So the only thing left to do at this stage is to hem them. They're kind of like a Snuggie, you know. They're nice, they're warm, they're cozy. They are both going to have a snap. So I'll put a snap on this, and then it will be inside this particular case, which will also have a snap right there. Now these snaps are not sew-on, and they are not cam. So this isn't what I need. This is a little bit too much. I don't generally use snaps, and those particular colors really would not be something within what I would be interested in using. So that isn't what I ordered. I decided to go with, so I didn't get the 50 piece, I got the 20 piece, but this is how the snaps are applied. So these little prongs, and then you have this little inset, and that is the size, and pretty much, I mean, you can see that they click together. Now, if I fall in love with using snaps, you know, I'll go for the 100 piece. I don't know. But anyway, this is fully functional. I love having a separate little case that I can just poke in here. It fits very nicely. Everything goes together like it should. And then I can just snap this closed, and it's right there attached to my purse. Or it could attach to any purse that I have. So I'm happy with that. There are a lot of really cool resources for fabric out there. You know, Goodwill, all kinds of little thrift stores, garage sales, estate sales, you know, your own grandmother's closet, you know, places like that. It might be a little bit worn out, it might never have been used before, but think about those options. And I used a pillow, I hate the cord on the floor, but you know, but that fan needs to go. But that little basket that I made right there was made from a pillow sham, a quilted pillow sham. And I love that little basket. I have a lot of fabric and I will not throw it away. I have a box there and a box there. That pink box is full of crumbs. And that box right there, right above my finger right there, that one is full of cabbage. And you could look in there and say to yourself, it all looks like cabbage. It could very well be all cabbage to some, but I will use it. I will definitely use it. This bag right here that I made, oops. This bag right here was made from a pillowcase right here. All of this, I tea-dyed this part of it on both sides for these pockets. That was tea-dyed. This was just a pillowcase. And I happen to have this that I purchased at Joann, and I thought it looked really pretty together. So I used this fabric, and I think the fabric, no, I used all of the fabric on the inside is from the piece of fabric from Joann, but that's okay. I love this little purse. It is so handy. It's a perfect size. I had fun making it. And if you want to see the video on how to do it, I am happy to, I'll try to remember to link it in the description below this video. Otherwise, it would be on my channel. So, we'll see what we can do. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it very, very much. Please hit the thumbs up and like and subscribe. Hit the little notification bell so that you will know when I have a new video coming out. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.